All right, guys. So this is number 3. The first one was really fun with Matt. The second one was great with Coach Marino. So now we have Aaron Wolk. Most of you, I mean, all of you should know who he is, but most of you know who he is. 4-time All-Section, 3rd, 2nd, 1st, 2-time All-State, 5th, 1st, career wins leader, careers pin leader. We've had some great wrestlers in Greeley history from the beginning to now, but at least statistically, nobody even touches Aaron's statistics. And, we're really excited to talk to you. I'm going to let you talk in a second, Aaron. I want to bring this up right away, and then, we're going to ask you some questions. I'm going to say the first way I met you, when I remember meeting you, I mean, I probably saw you at a couple of tournaments and things of that nature when you first started, but you were more involved with Coach DeBellis and the youth program there. I was more involved with the high school. 2013, I did the math, right? Because it was Joe Sasso's 8th grade year. We were at youth states. Joe made the finals that year, I remember, but Joe was around the high school a little bit, so I knew Joe a little bit better than Aaron. And Aaron did great. He took 3rd, right? And I remember at the end of the tournament going to say bye to you and your father, who I didn't know that well at the time, right? I just wanted, you were Greeley guys. I was there with a couple of Greeley guys, but mostly Iowa-style guys. Guys like Tyler Albus were wrestling and stuff. And I went to go say bye to Aaron, and Aaron was crying. And I remember asking Steve, like, why is he crying? And he goes, oh, because he took 3rd and he didn't take 1st. And I remember thinking in my head, like, oh, man, we got one here. Like, this is going to be good. This is going to be good. So that was my first experience with him. Coach, do you remember, like, when you first met Aaron?
Okay, first experience with Aaron. I mean, obviously, he was a youth wrestler, but we had about 30 of them. We were wrestling in the Beacon tournament, youth tournament. I was in Newburgh at the time. So I went across the bridge, and I get to watch Aaron wrestle over in Beacon. I don't know if I got it exactly right. He wrestles a kid, loses a tough one, beats everybody else in the bracket. But somehow, he wrestled the kid again, right, Aaron?
I don't remember exactly.
Somehow, some way, he ended up winning the tournament because he beat everybody and the other guy lost to somebody. And I think we asked Aaron, do you want to wrestle the kid again? He's like, of course. And he wrestled again and beat him.
That's awesome. All right, so we'll flip it to Aaron now. Aaron, we're going to try our hardest to go through your whole career with us because there's so much stuff that we could cover. But my first thing I would ask you is, do you remember how and why you got into wrestling, whether, I think it was, 2nd grade or so? Like, what got you into it? What was the reasoning?
So at the time, soccer was my top sport. And my best friend was David Conta back then. And so I think we just kind of went into DeBellis' youth program together. It seemed like a fun sport. I mean, one of the things I really like now that I think was one of the things that drew me to it then is how in soccer, I can't really control if someone messes up, I can't always control it. I could try as hard as I want, but I can't do much about it. It's all me on the mat, and I can control what good stuff happens and what I can't, what I can't do. So I really like that, and I think that drew me to it initially.
It makes sense. I mean, Coach DeBellis probably remembers this. I remember it very well. When I met you then, you were kind of an Iowa-style guy, but you were also going to Akron at the time. I'm sure and you learned a lot of good stuff from there as well. There was a point probably when you were a 2nd grader. I think you started in 2nd grade, right? That's the right age?
Yeah, 2nd grade.
So when you started in the 2nd grade, it wasn't like, hey, I'm wrestling year round right off the bat, right? Was there something that triggered that kind of said, all right, I want to take this really seriously and I love doing this? Was there a moment, or was it just kind of organic?
Yeah, definitely. In 5th grade, I went to a tournament in Danbury, and I lost all 4 matches there and took last place in the tournament. Just did terribly. And I was just like, okay, I really like this. I love winning, and I want to make sure I can get better at this. So I went to Askren's. I think David was also going there at the time. And it just seemed really fun. He started out with play wrestling because Askren's a funky wrestler. And he made it really fun for a younger kid like me in 5th grade. And eventually when he left, I went to Iowa Style, which was great to help me improve my wrestling.
Awesome. I mean, DeBellis, I remember, I don't know if you remember this, but could go for either of you guys, but when I kind of watched Aaron as he was coming up, but around that 2012, 2013 time, that's like the Scotty and the Brocks. And, I was very, very focused on them while you were making sure those younger guys were good to go. Was there a moment for you, Coach, when it clicked and you're like, this kid is going to be like something? Like, I know this kid is good. He's going to come to varsity right away and make an impact.
He could have came in 7th and 8th grade. He would have made an impact.
Yeah, for sure.
If we had selection classification here at Greeley, he would have made an impact. And I remember Aaron advocating for himself, going to the Board of Ed, making a speech as a 7th grader, I believe, or maybe an 7th grader, and pleading, please, we want selection classification, and they denied it. But he could have had close to 200 wins probably if he had 7th and 8th grade.
For sure. I mean, he's our win leader anyways, but
that modified team that he was on when he was in 8th grade was unbelievable. It was
7th grade when he was on 7th grade with Jacob. I guess you go either way because as 8th grade you had Nate. As 8th grade you had Nate and them too. It was both two good teams.
Yeah, with Schreiber, Nate, Aaron.
Yeah. It's a good squad right there. I mean, that's the difference. But
the big thing about Aaron was, for me, everybody likes to win. There's no doubt about it. Everybody wants to win. When they go out there, whether they paid the price to win or not, they want to win. But Aaron hated to lose more than he loved to win. He just did not like losing. And he had ice in his veins, and he beat guys. He beat guys that really he shouldn't have been beating at that time and dominating those guys.
Well, do you know what's interesting? So I want to get eventually to his state run, his senior year, which was unbelievable, but I'll save that towards the end of the interview. And it's so funny though, you see similarities, and Aaron, I'll have you talk on this a little bit, but you see similarities because his freshman year, he was great. He was really good. Third in the section, unbelievable year, doing great the whole time. But his run at that sectional tournament, to me, reminded me almost of his senior year sectional state tournament, and the fact where, he lost one match there, but nobody thought he was going to dominate the third place like he did. When he pinned that kid from East Ramapo, I think it was in the quarters, I believe, everybody was like, this kid is for real. Everybody else other than us were picking that kid to win that match, right? So I think that goes a little bit about Aaron's mindset, a little bit about like you said, ice in his veins. Like, do you remember as a freshman, Aaron, like what was going through your mind kind of going into that tournament?
I knew I wanted to win. I knew it would be tough because I had just lost to Brady Robin in divisionals right before that.
Yeah.
He beat me pretty badly there. But I wanted to win. I'd already wrestled Connor Melbourne before, and I felt I definitely had a chance to improve on that. And if I didn't make mistakes against Brady, I felt like I could win that match too. And then I was again trusting in my cradle that could help me score points and get pins.
It's blind faith too, in a sense, because your match with Brady was not close, right? And Brady was a great wrestler, right? But Aaron ended up having a better high school career than Brady for sure, and that's not a knock at Brady. Brady was, very good. But it's like you said before, Coach DeBellis, it's like the confidence in yourself, right? Like it didn't matter. It didn't matter what was happening. It was a new day, and Aaron Wolk was going into that tournament trying to win it. It didn't matter what happened before that. And I think that's something that some of our younger guys are lacking, right? And it was something that he kind of developed pretty much, I would think, on his own, his own hatred for losing. It was kind of like, no, I don't want to lose to Brady again. I lost to Connor Melbourne. I'm going to find a way to beat him. And we saw that through his whole career. I could think of a million moments where it probably wasn't supposed to happen that way, and he went and did it. He went and did it. But we'll flip this a little bit. I don't know if I'm sure you actually remember this, Aaron, because you have a good memory. I believe it was your freshman year. You were wrestling Chessman, I think, at Cornwall, and I made you choose bottom. I don't know if you remember. I made you choose bottom in the third period. I think it was Chessman. It was one match at Cornwall, but I'm pretty sure it was Chessman.
That sounds right.
Yeah, I made you choose bottom. I don't know. I think you ended up getting out, but you didn't get out in enough time to win the match. And you knew, because you hated losing so much, you knew that if you went top, you probably would have won that match, right? And in my head, I just wanted you to improve in all three positions, right? I wanted you to, hey, you got to get out, right? We got to figure this out. I think your freshman and sophomore year, you were awesome. I think junior, senior year, you were a little bit more bought in. And I think that's what totally put you right over the top of the mountain, right? Do you remember a little bit how your mindset changed through your career at Greeley at all?
Yeah, a lot more of it was I started out and I would just try to hit like a cradle or hit kind of random shots. I was terrible at neutral to start out. And you started showing me, both of you guys started showing me like moves that would really benefit me. And it kind of bought me into the program more. And I was just like thinking, if I really just buy into them, I know I'll be great. And between you guys and John and Khalid at Iowa Style, it all really helped me improve. And I really understood that I had to trust my coaches and I'd start winning more.
Yeah. I mean, I don't want to we'll jump around, I guess, a little bit because just trust, right? Like, I've never seen, I mean, I've been coaching only for 9 or 10 years. Coaching got a couple of years on me with the coaching. I've never seen somebody as dialed in as you were in the 2019 state tournament. Like, I had no doubt in my mind you were going to win that tournament. And I think all of it has to do with you. A lot of it has to do with your family, and a lot of it has to do with you just trusting. Like, we drilled certain specific things. You did it without a doubt, and you left no, I mean, just so people that are listening to this, because hopefully Greeley alumni and some of our parents and some of our current wrestlers are going to listen to this. You went 4-0 at the state tournament with 3 pins, one being in 58 seconds in the state finals, and one match that was 3-0 when that kid just didn't want to get embarrassed. He had no interest in winning that match. He just didn't want to get embarrassed. So, I mean, you trusting was key, and your drive was key. And you could talk a little bit, Aaron. I mean, talk a little bit on maybe that senior state tournament, because I don't think it's going to be hard for anyone to ever top that performance.
Well, one of the biggest things was the coaching I got right before that. Especially you kind of letting me get some extra takedowns in there, raising my confidence when we were wrestling.
He never. You got us.
You're gonna make me feel soft. I don't let anybody have anything.
That definitely did help, though, being able to wrestle you a lot more right before the state tournament, and just going over like mindset with you guys and all the extra training I put in right before the tournament. Going into the tournament, like usual through my 4 years, I thought of, well, I just want to get in, get a pin, get out. That was my plan. Little annoyed with the quarterfinals match. I cradled him once. The ref called it out of bounds, so didn't like that part. The semis match was fun. And the finals match was definitely fun. I remember going into that. Same mindset. I want to get a pin, want to finish my career on a pin. And, yeah, that's how it went.
Coach, do you remember the look? I mean, I know there's like specific things for people that you realize like this is going to be a good day, this is going to be a bad day, just by body language, right? Like, do you remember his look going into that weekend? I felt it. Like, I'm like, there's nobody's going to beat this kid. It's just not going to happen. Do you remember?
It was the exact opposite look as the kid from Eastport South Manor.
Exactly.
I could tell he lost, and I could tell Aaron won before the match even started. Even the coaches.
Yeah, I mean, do you know what I want them to realize too when they watch this is the kid that Aaron pinned in 58 seconds in the state finals, he beat him in overtime at Eastern States.
Yep.
You know, and he made adjustments, you know, and we went over it, you know, one of his single leg finishes, we kind of fixed it up a little bit. And we talked about it right before, like, because he kept getting a single at Eastern States, if you recall. And the kid had funky hips. He was a tough wrestler. He had good hips, and we weren't getting the finish. So we went over something, literally that warm-up. And this is the state finals, a guy that's winning. You know, a guy that's been winning his whole career. He doesn't need to put this in his arsenal now. He's been winning, you know. And he changed it up just like that. Not really changed it up, but nice finish, you know. And just said, you know what, this is mine. And I'm going to do what I need to do to take it. And the ability to be able to make that little bit of an adjustment that close to such a big match is a special characteristic, I feel like, that a lot of people don't have, you know. Do you remember that, like, that match with him at Eastern States, Aaron? Like, that was a match.
Yeah, that I definitely remember that. Didn't go exactly as planned. Obviously, I got the win, but yeah, I remember kind of messing up on top with an angle wrap, giving him a point. And
Yeah.
then
Oh, yeah, true.
yeah, and then my shots just like weren't clean at all. I would take it, kind of dive under. And right after that, we started changing things. My singles and doubles both got a lot better, which also helped me in the semis. I kind of dove in a little bit for a shot against JD Moore in the semis of states. And he did like the exact same defense that Totora did, but with a little less strength and not as quick. So I was able to like turn because I recognized the move and put him straight on his back from there. So definitely the training helped a lot.
It's a smart guy there. Smart guy we got here.
Student of the game.
All right. But I also wanted to bring up the fact, and we talked about it a little bit in Matt's interview, and I'm sure when we interview Jacob eventually, we'll bring it up in that interview too, is that, and this was Coach DeBell's point, something was really, really good point, that you three were super competitive, right? Like, I think more with you and Matt, it was more like same grade and like who's getting more wins and who's doing this. And you ended up coming on top of all of those competitions. But Matt was right there. If Matt Schreiber was alone on this team without these two guys, Matt would have been, the guy. Like, he had an unbelievable career, right? But when you're with somebody like Aaron, it's tough. Aaron's out there doing some crazy stuff. But I want to circle back to Jacob in the sense where I think this is a good thing for teams to have. You guys had some legit heat. There was legit heat. When you two would wrestle in the room, especially, I would say, his junior year and your sophomore year. Senior year, junior year, not as much. I think you guys were kind of both studs and you both realized what was going on. You guys didn't want to give up the takedown of each other. You guys kept score of the goes. Like, I remember Aaron at the end of a go being, it's 3 takedowns to 2 me. And Jacob being like, that last one didn't count. It's 2 takedowns to 1 me. And they would like be arguing about it and like getting like pretty close, where I feel like a lot of kids kind of shy away from that, where I think that's not the answer. I think we need that, right? Like, you got each other's backs, right? Some people probably don't understand when Aaron won a state title his senior year, Jacob was super happy. I'm sure when Aaron watched Jacob win that semifinals match his senior year, he was super excited. The semifinals match was crazy, right? Like, so
that was last second.
Huh?
Last second when he won that?
Last second, yeah. So it's like they had so much respect and they had each other's backs, but I really think that they helped each other become who they were. Like, we could do as much as we want, but if you don't have somebody in the room that's pushing you, actually pushing you right there, it's a big thing.
You're only as good as your workout partner. You're only as good as your workout partner. And these guys pushed each other. It was great. And he raised the level for all the students in the room.
Oh, for
they were
sure.
Great leaders, all three of them.
Unbelievable. And in different ways. And I'll get to that in a little while too. But Aaron, what do you think about like that competition, whether it was with Matt, with the wins and losses, or whether it was Jacob with actually like competing with him in the room and wrestling with him?
Yeah, with Jacob, it was great. We both loved winning, hated losing. So we'd do anything possible to get that takedown. He'd hit something, I'd defend. He'd learn how to get around that. I'd have to learn again. And it just kept going on and on. A great cycle of us just learning how to defend and attack in different ways. And with Matt, with the winning thing, that was just like, we're rooting for each other to get wins. And we just hope each other does well out on the mat every single time there.
I think we mentioned it last time. It was ridiculous. Their freshman year, it was like Matthew had 33 wins, and Aaron had like 35 wins. It was ridiculous.
It was funny.
As freshmen.
Yeah, and we knew they were going to be good, but I think they kind of exceeded everybody's expectations. Of course, you all probably think I'm, a little bit crazy sometimes. I always think we could do crazy things, but when it really happened in front of us, it's like, man, like this is something. But Coach DeBellis, you could touch on this too, and Aaron, eventually I want you to say something on this too, but I find it super interesting that we've had great wrestlers in our whole tenure together, right? But those three, Aaron, Jacob, and Matt, those were our best, right? If we had Scotty a little bit later in our careers as coaches, who knows, we had some great guys, Scotty, Brock, and, the Sassos and all of that, but they all were so good, great leaders, and they were similar in the fact that they loved to win, hate to lose, and they were good kids. Other than that, they had nothing in common. Nothing. Absolutely nothing in common. And I find that to be super interesting, that you could have 3 kids be so successful, but be so different and be under the same umbrella. Don't you find that like kind of, it's a different thing. Like, I mean, Aaron, you could talk about it a little bit. Like, you guys, like what Aaron did for guys like Everett and guys like Dom.
Yeah, it's a ton of time.
But Aaron wasn't the type to
In the room coaching.
yeah, but he wasn't the type of guy to be loud about it like Jacob. Jacob had a different approach, right? Jacob would yell at guys and say, hey, you need to get your act together because we're doing this, this, and this. While Aaron would have a different approach and it would help for those guys. And Matt, Matt probably had a lot to do with somebody like Izzy's improvement as a wrestler, being around the same. So they all had different, different great qualities, but they were so different. They were so different. Do you remember that, Aaron, as a high school guy? Just like you guys had all these different approaches. Like it's just I don't want to say weird, but it's unique.
Yeah, they were all definitely different. I remember specifically with Everett. Initially, he wasn't like working super hard in the room, but then he became like my number one practice partner. He began working harder, and then he started like pushing me to work harder, and it kind of went back and forth, and helped both of us definitely get a lot better.
Yeah.
Sure.
Everett was a special athlete. I mean, Everett could move. He could move.
Yeah, but that goes back to the same thing, right? That goes back to, Aaron, Jacob, and Matt, our three most successful guys, were all youth wrestlers, right? Like we could turn it, for like a year, right? And then stopped or something.
He was in and out.
So like we were able to take a guy like Everett and turn him into a guy that probably could have won the section senior year if he wrestled up to his capabilities, but he wasn't going to win a state title, right? If we want a guy that is going to win a state championship like Aaron, he needs to commit. He needs to be into it like he was. And we're working on doing that. But I love going back on stories like Aaron's stories, just to show it could be done, right? Like there's so many ways that we could chop this up, right? There's so many ways that he was successful. There's so many ways that he adapted. Like he said before, like, and I'll have you talk on this, Aaron, but he wasn't like a dynamo on his feet. Senior year, he got a lot better there. But he wasn't great there. He wasn't great there, but he adapted. He figured it out. He found a way to win. There's always a way to win. If you want it bad enough, you'll get it done. And I feel like Aaron wanted it bad enough. Do you remember having to make like adjustments, Aaron, as a wrestler when you weren't – your senior year, you were pretty good on your feet. I think you could go with almost anybody on your feet at that point. Before that, you weren't. You weren't bad, but state level, section level, you weren't that guy. Do you remember having to make adjustments to say, hey, I got to find a way?
Yeah, so there were 2 times, I think, throughout high school that I felt like I needed to make big adjustments, and I was able to. One was between freshman and sophomore year. I remember watching Ja'Cory Teamer wrestle a lot on like Flow or YouTube or wherever I watched him, and I really liked his shot defense because anytime someone shot, he was just able to find a way out of it. It also looked kind of fun. I started with Askren. It was kind of a funky shot defense, but that just really helped my hip positioning on defense, made it a lot harder for guys to score on me. The second was between junior and senior year. I wasn't really able to score that much off of good shots my junior year. And I scored a little bit first half of senior year, but after Eastern States, I definitely felt a big improvement in my shooting capabilities. So I made a switch there. Totora and I started drilling a lot more in neutral, and I started getting in on more shots, and that definitely helped there.
I mean, I think that has to say, too, with our whole coaching staff as a whole, because we're going to get Alex on here eventually, too, and Alex was a state champion himself. But I remember it's an ego thing, right? Like Coach Sabellis and I feel like we don't have those type of egos. And I know Alex is very dynamic on his feet. And I remember a couple practices, like I would go live with Aaron, right? I would wrestle with him, but I would say, hey, Alex, work with him wrestling from the outside a little bit. Like, let's get a shot here. Let's get a quicker shot. And, Alex, of course, jumped right in there. And I think stuff like that was beneficial. I just want to ask you, too, I have a moment other than your state championship. But let's take the state championship out for a second, because everybody knows that that's the pinnacle, right? Take that out. What was your most proud moment as a Greeley wrestler?
I mean, I was definitely really happy when I took third at Easterns my junior year.
That was awesome.
That was a run. That was a run. Remember, he had 5 pins. He lost in the first round.
Second, I think, right?
Let's see. I think it was
Barzak, right?
No, I lost to Barzak my sophomore year.
Okay. Who was
Oh,
it?
it's different. Oh, it's different.
Oh, it was the kid from Fairport,
Oh, Barker.
Barker.
Yeah, I think I was the 6 seed and he was the 3. Is
Yeah, it
that
was the quarters. It was the quarters, and then
Yeah.
you won round of 12. Next round, Conti semis, third and fourth. But he pinned some really good guys along the way, like
Well,
really good guys.
one of my
More
big ones
points than
there
anybody in the
was
tournament.
the like the blood round against Matt Rogers, who I had a bunch of great matches against.
Yes.
I was able to turn that one around from like we were having like good scrap there, and I kind of put him straight to his back and pinned him. So that was a pretty good moment for me there.
I'm gonna say mine, coach. I'm sure you have one too, but
Right.
I forgot. I didn't forget, but you bringing up Eastern States, that's right up there because that was some run. I mean, that whole tournament for all of the guys was a great tournament. But Aaron coming through the wrestlebacks there was like fire. Like he was just on fire. His senior year, Oswego was not wrestling his best match at all. Just wasn't wrestling his best match. The kid was tough. Don't get me wrong. The kid was returning small school state champ,
Yeah, Dempsey Carroll.
Dempsey Carroll. And it was in the third period. I forgot how much he was down. He was down by like 2 or 3. I think it was 3 because I was saying get the escape and get the takedown. It's a tie match. And Aaron was already getting better on his feet. He was good on bottom. He would get out. And Aaron's like, no, I want to go top. And Aaron, as a freshman and sophomore, we worked through a little bit of him buying into us and believing in us. His senior year, he was totally bought in, but he felt something, right? And if a guy that's that good feels something like that, I'm not going to fight it. I'm like, you sure? I remember, I don't know if he remembers this, but I remember specifically saying, are you sure you're going to turn him? And he said, yes. I said, okay, top it is. This guy goes out. Everybody on planet Earth, everybody in the stands knows this man is going to hit a cradle on this kid. Everybody knows the kid he's wrestling knows. He goes for the first attempt, kind of breaks it a little bit, right? But he had it almost. Again, locks it, takes him down. I think he ends up separating the kid's shoulder. The kid
broke his collarbone.
broke his collarbone.
Yes, he broke his collarbone.
And the kid, pin, done for the season, I guess. And we're not happy that the kid was done for the season, but the proud moment was like, man, what kind of guts does somebody have to say, I'm going top, I'm betting on myself, and I'm going to pin this kid. That was crazy.
Think about the guts of the kid, too, that he wrestled. He was in a cradle. The kid fought so hard he broke his collarbone because Aaron just was relentless with that cradle. He
might have broke his collarbone though coming through.
Oh, is that
Aaron takes it back pretty hard.
Yeah, it was he stood up while I locked the cradle, and I went back, and he kind of slammed straight down on his shoulder when he landed on his back. So,
D, do you have a moment
for Aaron? Well, the thing that I wanted to bring up, which is important for the youth and for all the little kids that are coming up, and even the kids that are in high school, what did you do every single day? What exercise did you do every day?
just like at home.
Yeah.
My main exercise would be push-ups, pull-ups, chin-ups, and I ran a lot.
Yeah. So the big thing for me is the pull-ups. Every day he would do pull-ups, him and his father. So
yeah.
Steve bought in. Steve would make him do, right? Didn't you and your dad do pull-up competitions all the time?
Yeah, we still do.
Well, that's the thing. But that's the thing, too, Coach. We need to touch on 2 things there. One, I noticed right away is the running thing. I'll never forget a practice. He did this a couple times, but I'll never forget a practice. I don't remember the first time he did it. And we're in the middle of practice, and Steve walks in. I'm like, what's up, Steve? You know, Aaron's dad. And he's like, yeah, I'm just grabbing his keys or whatever, his bag, because, you know, he's going to run home. It's like, oh, okay. So he just decided that day, hey, I'm going to run home from practice. Or he'll show up with a book bag sweating, and he just ran there, right? Like stuff like that. But and Aaron, you can get on this a little bit, and Coach DeBellis. We'll talk to David Shriver, right? We'll talk to Steve Wolk. We'll talk to Wendy Ferrer, and we'll talk to some of the great parents that we had before those guys. You know, we're lucky in that sense. We've had a lot of really, really good parents. Steve was never a problem for us at all. But when Aaron was a 9th or 10th grader, it wasn't that he thought he knew better, but, you know, he loved Aaron and he wanted what's best for him. By junior, senior year, you could sense, and he always trusted us, but with his kid, but, you know, it changed a little bit where he was like, no, these guys know. Like, these guys know what's best for my kid in this aspect of life. And I think it's beneficial because somebody was asking me, and Aaron, I'll have you speak on this in a second. Somebody was like, are you going to push Luca really hard when he gets older and he decides to wrestle, I'm like, no, I'll hold him accountable. You start something, you finish it, right? You work your hardest, you don't quit, but let your coaches be coaches, let your parents be parents, kind of thing, right? And I feel like Steve did a really good job of, like, he knew how Aaron ticked better than anybody, but he did a good job of junior, senior year, especially, of like letting us kind of mold him into the wrestler. Do you remember a little change of that, Aaron, kind of like where your dad was like bought into the program?
I don't remember a specific change, but I definitely remember him just being like, listen to Tutorial, listen to Bellis. They definitely know what to do way better than I can. I can help you out here with like schoolwork and like the push-ups, the pull-ups, run, that stuff. But I cannot help you with wrestling. They're the best you're gonna get for wrestling.
And it's great.
That's what he said.
And it's great to see.
Unbelievable, for sure. They were terrific.
But we're lucky, right? And it's great to see, like, the wrestling's an individual sport and a team sport, right? But like you said, Coach DeBellis, last time, like, what your families have to do for you to be successful is not easy, right? And to see the joy in Carol's and Steve's face when Aaron won that state title, because it's a journey that they all did together. It's not like, hey, Aaron decided to wrestle and he just pinned all these guys and that's the end of the story, right? Like, there was a lot of car rides up to club practice, right? There was a lot of tournaments in Oswego, and there's a lot of, like, traveling around, and it's different. The opportunities are a little bit different than a soccer and a baseball and a basketball, right? You have to find them, right? You have to find them, and it takes a lot of work. So I think, especially with Mother's Day, you better thank your mom tomorrow, but especially with Mother's Day and stuff coming, it makes you think, like, to be successful in the sport, families have to sacrifice. And I hope that it becomes, it makes the kids better for it, and the parents realize that, and they're willing to do the sacrifice because they know what the sport could give you. That's what my hope is, at least. And I think we're starting to get that with our new crop of parents. Hopefully they will understand exactly, what this will do. To go off of that a little bit, Aaron, have you realized in your first year of college, and I'm sure we'll talk about Brown a little bit too, but I'm sure it's, college is not easy, and especially being in an Ivy League school like Brown, has wrestling kind of helped you mature and maybe handle some of these responsibilities that now are in front of you?
It definitely helps with time management, learning that. In high school, I remember my grades were higher during the wrestling season. So that was pretty big. Time management was a big one. And then just knowing like what to do. I have to go to a workout. I got to get my schoolwork done. And here at Brown, I can pick classes with other people that like are on the team. So I can like study with people, and it helps me improve with that.
Yeah, I think that's a huge misconception and a huge excuse that we hear all the time, that I can't wrestle because my grades will suffer. That is erroneous.
And we get it a lot.
Yeah, we get that a lot. We also get I can't wrestle because I got to lift. Like, what?
Well, look at our three best wrestlers, Coach. Look at our three best wrestlers we ever had, right? Those are our three recent superstars. And really you could throw Izzy into that too, because Izzy had the misfortune of wrestling boys when she's a girl, and she still did a darn good job. But, pound for pound, she's a great wrestler. She took round to 12 at nationals, all that stuff. They're all really good at school. Aaron's at Ivy League. Izzy's a 4.0 student. Matt Schreiber's at Binghamton's great school. Jacob originally went to Bucknell, which is a great school, and decided to transfer to NC State, probably more so for wrestling purposes there. But, our kids that succeeded, I feel like, succeeded in the classroom too, and it's part of the culture, right? It's what we expect. If it didn't come easy for Aaron, fine, we'll work and we'll figure it out. We're okay with you not being a 4.0 student if you're not a 4.0 student, if it comes hard for you, but you got to be your best version of yourself, right? That's always the key. Be the best version of yourself. And I feel like Aaron, Jacob, Matt, Izzy, and a lot of other kids, but those four specifically, were always trying to be the best version of themselves. And they were all different versions, right? Like it's pretty fun, So so I was going to actually also ask you, Aaron, giving back in our program, right? That's a thing. Like Jacob's always back in winter practices. Aaron was back at all the winter practices. Matt was back for all those practices. But now
not wrestling, of course. Just
not wrestling, of course. Yes, not wrestling, of course. But even in the aspect of me picking up the girls season, right, with Taft and stuff, he came to a practice at Taft. Jacob came to a practice at Taft. Matt came to a practice at Taft. Izzy, all that. They all trained like their mom, Izzy's mom took her and all that stuff. But it's like, I feel like once you're in this family, it's a different type of family compared to other sports. Like you got each other. You're going to figure out a way. You want to leave it better than you got it, in a sense, right? I've talked to Aaron a couple times this year of guys that I think could do a little bit better wrestling wise, and I know he's friends with them, and having him reach out to them and talk to them and mentor them, right? Aaron, do you see like something with this program that might have been different? So, and this is not a knock at soccer or anything else he played, but is there a different like family relationship maybe with this sport compared to some other sports?
Yeah, so the two sports I played the most were soccer and wrestling. And wrestling was just way closer. Everyone just kind of understood everyone's like capabilities, how hard you're working, knew how to help others in the classroom. With soccer, it was just like, pass me the ball. I want to like kick the ball, that kind of thing. Everyone was kind of distanced from each other. I had a couple friends out there. I mean, most of my team I was friends with, but it wasn't like the same thing as my team at Brown or my team at Greeley for wrestling.
It's a family. I feel like it's a band of brothers and sisters, like we said yesterday with Izzy. Like, you go through something, like most adults, and I said this, I think, during Matt's interview as well, most adults could not do what guys like Aaron Wolk, Matt Schreiber, and Jacob Ferry did as high school students. They were getting up in the morning, watching their weight, doing very well in the classroom, going to practice, showering up, eating a little dinner, going to another practice, and then going to bed. And then or doing their homework, going to bed. Like, it takes a certain type of commitment, but our plan is, by the end of this, you're going to be those people that other people look up to. You're going to be leading the way in important movements of sense, right? Like where people are going to want to follow you because you have the right attributes, and that's what it's about, right? That's what it's about. Like, I could think of matches that he didn't win, like remembering as a fifth grader or fourth grader when he lost at that state tournament. He just wanted to be his best, right? And that, to me, that's the moral of the story, right? And we'll talk to Jacob, but like we talked about last time, him losing in the state finals was a pivotal moment for me as a coach, for him as an athlete, right? Luckily, Aaron didn't have to have that pivotal moment his senior year at States, but he had plenty of them before. The year before when he lost that PSAL kid, who was a good wrestler. He was a good wrestler, but he was hurt for most of the year. He didn't get seated. He didn't get put in the spot that he was supposed to be put in. That's a make or break kind of match, right? Like, I mean, you think you're going to be this guy, and that happens, and it takes it away from you. His knee was bummed. He was hurting. He wasn't feeling great. He still got on the podium that year. And I feel like you need things like that to kind of keep you going in the right direction, right? If you're winning all the time and everything's easy, then how are you going to improve? It's got to be a little hard, Do you remember any moments, and then we'll start to wrap this up. Do you remember any moments, Aaron, that were specifically hard where you were like, this is tough right now. I'm having a tough time here.
Yeah, there were a couple, mostly to do with like injuries. First one was sophomore year. After I went to J-Rob, I got stress fractures in my lower back from running so much there. So I had to take a couple months off for that. And those don't totally go away, but I'm kind of used to it. So that was a little tough, but even tougher was junior year, that first match at States. I tore my LCL. I re-tore it again junior year NHSCA. And then in the summer, I tore my right LCL at Fargo training camp. So going around with two bad knees after that, right before my senior year, that was pretty tough because I couldn't really wrestle all the time, and I had to catch up a lot once I was back.
Tough, man. I mean, go ahead, Coach.
I felt like senior year, the momentum kept on building up to that state tournament where you were kind of sick.
Yeah.
I think at Eastern States you didn't feel well.
Sick. Yeah, I remember.
Wego, you didn't really feel that great. And then all of a sudden at States, I think everything clicked together mentally, physically, and spiritually. You were ready to go. And it's really wonderful when everything comes together in one spot at the right time. And a lot of guys, including myself, at Nationals, when I was in college, I never performed as well as I did in the beginning of the year. At the end of the year, I kind of teetered off a little bit, where at the beginning of the year I was strong. You did the right progression. You started like a diesel engine, warmed up, and then just captured the gold at the end, which was the way to do it.
Can I just interject there too before Aaron says anything on that? Is I don't care if Aaron had 103 fever at the state tournament. He was winning it.
Oh,
he was winning it. If you guys have done, and I brought this up last time too, has anybody been watching that Last Dance thing with Michael Jordan?
I haven't seen it yet, but
it's really good. Everybody should watch it. But if you guys recall, remember the flu game he had when he had the flu?
Yes.
It's the same thing, right? Now basketball and wrestling are different. But
55 points, I think.
The guy's a competitor. It doesn't matter. And I talk to some of our athletes now, and to me, there's a difference between an injury and being hurt, right? Like, we're not going to let you get hurt where it's something that's going to affect you in the long run type of thing. But sometimes if you're going to be that person, you might have a little cold. How have you trained your whole life off? And you had a little cold in the state finals. You're not going to let that deter you, right? But if you let that happen your whole career, your whole life, and you look for an escape route, it's going to be really hard for that one big match to say, hey, now I'm going to do it, right? When Aaron was the type of kid where, he definitely matured. I think you matured as you went on, but you always were the type of kid that, at least if it was in the middle of a match, if you got hurt or something happened, you were not going to let that stop you from trying to be the best you. I don't think you were. Do you understand what I'm saying, Aaron? Do you remember any of those?
Yeah.
Like I feel like a lot of our guys now and they're great kids. They just don't know, right? They don't know maybe where their body could take them or how hard you need to push to be successful. And I think you did that a lot of times.
Yeah, my dad actually talks about this a lot because he runs a lot more than I do, and he'll run as much as he can until it's a point where he's actually going to get injured. He's going to get injured. He'll stop. And that's kind of helped me learn the same thing. If I'm going to get injured, most of the time I'll stop. I mean, at States junior year, I felt my knee kind of going out. I had never heard it before, so I didn't know anything was really going to happen. But I just kept going, and it just popped out. But most of the time, I'll go and only stop if it's really going to be a serious injury. If I'm just hurt, like I've wrestled before with the flu, certainly with a cold, even with minor like a wrist sprain, elbow sprain, something like that. Like I hyperextended my elbow against Gissendaner freshman year. All that, I'll definitely wrestle with that.
Mindset. It's a mindset, and I think that mindset will help you in the rest of your life, because like we talked with Matt, like things are not always going to be easy, and if you're used to giving in when things get a little difficult, that's going to be a bad habit, and you are the polar opposite of that. Even when the difference with Aaron and Jacob, I think a big one with wrestling with me is Jacob always was just like, even when he wasn't very good, he was this fiery little guy. He always wanted to take me out, right? When I first started wrestling with Aaron, he would let me beat him up. Like he wasn't trying his hardest. And I think it was just almost a respect thing, like for the coach kind of thing. And like junior year flipped and he scored. And then you could feel something like, he's like, oh, I'm going to compete with coach just like I compete with anybody else. Forget this. And we would get to the point in his senior year where if I would be on like a double leg or something like that, I would look behind me and somehow he'd be holding my ankle or holding my foot or holding something. And I wasn't scoring yet because he would have a shoelace, whatever it was. Like he would hold on for dear life because he was tough. He is tough. And I think that's going to, when Aaron's 30, 40, 50 years old, those same attributes are going to come into play big time. I'm excited to see where it takes him.
One of the biggest things I felt was obviously the hating to lose, but that kind of transformed in wrestling into I wouldn't let myself get pinned. I got pinned once. That was one of the worst parts of my high school wrestling by Charlie Spada.
I remember.
In the blood round of sophomore Eastern States. But besides that, I didn't. And I almost did first round Eastern States freshman year against Gissendaner. He put me to my back like 4 or 5 times, and he was way stronger than me, so much stronger than me. And I couldn't really do much against him, but to me it was just like life or death. I wouldn't let myself get pinned. He ended up attacking me, but I just made sure I fought off my back every time. And in a team sense, that's a point, and that could be a really big point for a team. So just kind of think about it like it's life or death, and really just hate to lose.
That's interesting. I wonder how many points you scored for the team and how many points got. In other words, it would have to be a ridiculous ratio.
Yeah,
right?
It's like nuts.
I mean, if you only got pinned once your entire high school career.
And he was not happy.
You know who did that this year too? Who didn't get pinned once?
I know
Do you know who, Aaron?
who. Guess, Aaron. On our whole team this year on our roster, who would be your guess of someone that did not get pinned once?
Izzy?
And wrestled 30 matches.
Is
Who?
it? Is it?
Izzy.
Izzy. Izzy did not get pinned once. Could you imagine that? And she was on her back a couple times.
Yeah, some really scary ones that I probably lost. I'm gonna live to 75 instead of 80 now because of. But
Yes.
I don't know. I feel like we could talk to you forever, Aaron. You know, we could get into some other stuff about like mindset and you know, we kind of got into it a little bit, but I'm thinking too, Coach, that eventually we could wrap up on this one here. But I would like to bring Matt back and Aaron back, and after we interview Jacob, bring them back maybe in some sort of capacity because, you know, Aaron being the best, I think Aaron's the best wrestler, at least statistically in Greeley history. I mean, 3 state champions, but I don't think anybody ever made the type of run that he made at a state tournament. I'm sure Bill had a good tournament there, but
Well, I would have to argue that Izzy is a 3-time All-State wrestler. And
this is unbelievable. Honestly, Izzy is the end of this era of Jacob, Aaron, and Matt. I group her with them. She's unbelievable. And now we need to, with the Michaels and the Olivers, we need to start a new era. And it's got to change up a little bit. And we need new people to step forward and be leaders. But I would like to bring those 3 guys on maybe together after we interview Jacob to kind of talk about their shared experience because, you know, we've had some greats. You know, Scotty was great, man. Scotty was really good. Our first All-State wrestler. He put us on the map. Brock continued to keep us on the map, you know, getting on the podium there and having a great career placing at Eastern States and all that stuff. Guys like Joe Sasso and Nadler kind of and Andre Nesbitt kind of kept us relevant. They were tough. They were in there. But then these 3 came. And with these 3 came, I mean, it's hard to think of another 3 that were on the same team in Section 1 that was as successful as those guys.
How about Burke St. John, Greg Ironfrank, and Anthony J. Tortora?
We were good, but we weren't
good.
them. But we weren't them. I'm telling you. We weren't them.
Well, you had a 3rd place, 4th place, and a 2nd place.
Yeah, but I came in 4th my junior year, and neither of them placed. My senior year, I didn't place, and they both placed. And then their senior year, they both placed. We never had 3 All-State guys in 1 year, ever.
We had 3 All-State and 1 All-State female in 1 year.
Yeah.
2019.
With the same work ethic.
2018.
So I'm really excited, Aaron, to see you continue to compete at Brown. I think they got a really good one in you. I think they're starting to see it and realize it. But you're the type of guy that as your career goes on there, you're going to surprise them too. Like I won't be surprised if once you work your way kind of through the ranks in college and you're just that type of guy. As long as you keep that same mindset that you always had, you're going to be successful at that level as well. Really fun talking to you again. Do you have any last words, Mr. Wolk, before we sign out of here?
It was great seeing you guys, great talking to you, and I hope we get out of quarantine soon.
Listen, when
it's
go ahead, Coach.
Behind you, you know.
I know it's snowing out here. When we get out of quarantine, I'm telling you right now, you and Jacob both, I'm not wrestling with you guys anymore. Aaron got a couple of W's over winter break, but you know my W's are still a little higher, so I'm going to keep it as the champ. And I'm retiring wrestling Aaron and Jacob, and that's the end of it. So don't try to sway me in there. Right. What'd you say?
He'll do it.
I probably will, yeah. I can't turn down a challenge. But I'm going to stop recording, Aaron. Hang out for 1 second. You're the man. Thanks for doing this.